clothes, change of everything. Had slight technical difficulty and deleted some of my videos that were wonderful. Made for a great day of discovery. But I'm back, and so what I wanted to do was talk a little bit more about this scope, some care and feeding of it, make sure you know how to clean it and stuff, and then show you some up-close stuff about the phase. We're also going to beat a dead horse, and I want to use the whiteboard and draw out about how the phase is working, because I really think that it's important, and maybe drawing it out. I'm used to talking to you guys in person, and I think that might work better. But the last video ended with me looking at some bacillus. It was an oil immersion setup because it was a gram stain, remember? So I want to make sure you realize that when you're using these microscopes, you got to make sure they're clean. So you take a little cleaner and you use these optical wipes. Okay, these are not tissue paper. They're not cotton. Although cotton would work very well, like your T-shirt would work great for this, but I wouldn't recommend it. But these are made so that they will not scratch the lenses and the glass on these microscopes, objectives and oculars and everything else. So use these to clean. What I do when I'm done using the oil immersion over here is I will take a little piece of this stuff. The other thing these look like is chem wipes. These are not chem wipes, okay? These are really smooth feeling. Take a little blob of cleaner and go under here into that oil objective and rub it off clean, okay? You want to make sure it gets nice and clean because you do not want oil on these lenses sitting there forever and ever. You certainly don't want the oil on the other objectives too. Probably good practice to go ahead and clean the thing off anyway. Clean the objectives, clean the oculars, because you don't know what moron was there before you. I'm sorry, fellow microbiologist. And so you want to make sure that things are clean, so it's probably a pretty good idea. What I want to do is, it'll be a little jumpy, but I want to show you some parts of the scope that make it the phase, that make it a little more important, and show you a little bit about how. This little guy here is what's called and what you do is you're trying to align these rings that are down here and make it so they retard the light the way they're supposed to. In order to do that, you look through the oculars and you use one of these to look through the ocular, and you can actually see the phase rings through this, and you can adjust. There's two little knobs under the stage that you use to adjust this little bullseye looking thing so that it'll slide back and forth until you get it right in the center, and that will mean you're in phase. That means the phase plates and the phase objective, everything is lined up to work correctly. Okay? So all you do with this thing is pull out an ocular someday, put this in, and this has a little focus on it. Okay? You turn on your scope and you match up your objective with the phase. Under the phase ring, I'm on 10x, so this is pH 1. And I look under here and I focus this until it looks pretty good. Now I'm going to adjust this so that it's out of phase, so I can show you guys what it looks like when it's out of phase. Okay? And we'll stop there. I'll try to take a picture and show you what it looks like. Okay, so that's what it looks like when it's out of phase. And then when I adjust this thing, we can get it in phase. So let's pardon any sickness you might have. Let's go under here and see where we adjust. So see this little knob here, this little twisty knob? There's one on the other side of the stage. And what we do is when we look through that ocular into that special piece, we basically push this in and turn it one way or the other. And what that's going to do is superimpose these two rings on each other. And I'll do that now and show you what that looks like. now that the thing is in phase, as long as I match the pH number value on the phase ring with whatever objector I'm looking in, the thing should be in phase all the way through and see a really nice picture. So let's talk a little bit about what it means to be getting into phase. Doorknob before that. I don't know if I showed you all these things on here. So here, for instance, is the phase ring, and you can see it says pH 1 on there. I think you can see that. And then you move this thing back and forth, and it says different things. That's 0. That means it looks just like a regular light microscope. Works the same way. There's dark field, which we won't use, but there's pH 3 that matches with the oil. pH 2 that matches with the 40X. Okay? So that's how that phase ring works, or how the little stage, that little mover works. The phase objectives, of course, are here. This one's pH 3, and it says it way over here, above my finger again. Those are the numbers that you match. Okay? So now let's go to the whiteboard and try to show you something about how the phase actually works. One more time. This might help people finally get it if you didn't get it. Okay, so let's try this one more time. This is about the light path with a phase scope, right? So if this is a little bacterium, okay, swimming along, we'll call the green marker light that's going through, but not going through the actual single pole. Okay? That's useless. Well, that's more like it. Light that's passing along, but not going through the sample, so it's not being refracted or anything. And we'll look at that wavelength. We're going to represent that wavelength. Let's represent it as this. Light, okay? Now the black one is going to represent movement of light that goes through the sample. So notice when it hits the sample, it's going to bend. So the light bends a little bit, hits the other side of the sample, bends some more, and flies off in that direction. Okay? The difference between these is about 1/4 of the wavelength, which again is useless for your eye. Your eye cannot see that difference enough to really make a nice image, okay? Enough to be able to see things really well. So, what do? The phase rings, which you now have a couple pictures of, will move the wavelengths represented by the black and the green out of phase completely. So the black is going to represent this line here, this 1/4 wavelength, and you can see that it's moved by 1/4 of a wavelength approximately, but it's not doing what it needs to do. When you, on the other hand, use the phase rings and adjust your phase scope, use the red as the new wavelength that's adjusted, it's going to adjust this wavelength so that it's a whole half out of phase of the light going through the organism. So it's going to be like this. Okay? Now what that means is, notice, here's a apex, and here's a little trough. Okay? Here's another apex, here's a little trough, another, and another. Okay, and they're not perfect as I drew them, but you can see that those are out of phase, and so that's disturbance. Okay, that means you're going to get, when you add, this plus number and this minus number, you're going to get 0, and that's going to be